Today we have Marco, Paolo, and Alistair from UNIVET who are going to present to us on the transition from the safety standard of EN 166 to ISO 16321. So I suppose now that we've got the football banter out the way, we'll crack on with that. So who's starting?
I'll leave it to Marco. He's got the presentation.
Yeah. So let me share.
And you'll not be able to understand me because I've been Scottish, you know. So
that's what I just have to retrieve the presentation. It should be there. So tell me that you can see my presentation.
Yep.
Okay. And now the same. Okay. So thanks everybody to having joined us. And okay, just prepared as a job, just introduced transition from EN, the old European standard, to the new one, ISO, regarding eyewear and eye protection. So this is not a 3 hours long presentation because I wanted to forget forever thinking that the master concept, the basic concepts, the most important one. First of all, what has been and what's the roadmap for taking us to the new ISO, and then what's their validity. So how long is a product certified EN still available, still valid? What are the key differences among the two standards? What does the ISO introduce totally brand new that was not in the EN? What are the classification of this ISO 16321? With a little guide to the safety marking and an appendix, eventually about the comparison about the marking of the eyewear. So starting from the first, the roadmap. Everything started in May 2023 when the technical standard was published. Harmonized in the general requirements, protected for welding, speak about welding where you have a hyphenation 2 and a hyphenation 3, something specific about the mesh predators. And that was in the old 2023, long time ago. What happened? It happened that 1 year after, the Commission had to make ISO standard compulsory, but they postponed 1 year. I had to do with the withdrawal of the IN 66, making the IN 66 rescheduled by November 2025. So in the transit period, then from October 24 to November 25, manufacturer could choose to apply for a certification to either the EN or the ISO standard. With the deadline that from November 25, every new certificate, every new product had to be certified according to the ISO only. So that means that everything which has been certified within November 2025 is okay, having certified that in according to the N 166. But sorry that I wanted to move away this one, otherwise I don't see what's spreading here. Starting from November 2025, all the certifications must be in according to the ISO 16321 only, in terms of the due documentation, test reports, technical file, user instruction, declaration conformities, and the marking on the product. So, just to recall, every new product launched after the November 25 has to be compliant with the ISO 16321. The products which are already certified EN 166 are kept covered for the whole duration of the EN certification, which is a maximum of 5 years. So if something has been certified in April 2025, the certification EN is still valid for a maximum of 5 years, means until April 2030, just as an example. So the coexistence of the dual certification is something which is regulated, which is something which is not out of law, and this is something normal. Us, speaking about us of UNIVET as a manufacturer point of view, of course, we have to ensure the continuity of the supply of the product. And this means that there are products which can be recertified ISO to the from the present IN, and some of them which are not. So means that they will be substituted by ISO compliant products. We grant a technical support and, of course, a compliance to the regulator. So why introducing a new ISO? Because this is one of the most common questions, why the ISO was introduced. This Mr. Yu Yang is trying to effectively to be admitted, but there are evidently some issues.
Laura, maybe you need to do it.
Yeah.
That's right. I think it will be the person that says it.
So why introducing a new ISO? The first reason will be because the IN 166 is 25 years old. Raised in 2001. Something changed in the world in between. And one of these things that changed is that today it's better to have a more global vision of the protection of the workers, because you can imagine that there are people from 5 different continents. And it's, even if it might be impossible to reach or to cover all of that, but at least with this new ISO, they tried to at least cover 95% of the global world working. Why? In which way? By renewing the existing test, or introducing a new test. And everything in order also to make a revolution in the personal protective equipment in order to reach this goal, 95% of coverage. In order to do that, it's clearly that there are some key differences between the EN and the ISO. Talking about the head, the fake head, because whenever we have to mount on a fake head our products in order to test them for the impact resistance for test, for example, for the chemical resistant test and so on. Before, EN only had 2 fake head, only 2. We're passing from 2 to 6. Splitting by 3 heads in the European heads, say so, and 3 in the Asian heads, small, medium, and large. So the test today have to be, a new product has to be tested not only on 2 fake heads.
It's your choice.
It's your choice. Paolo tells me that this is our choice. Of course, we have chosen to cover the most as possible, because otherwise we couldn't.
1M is the most used. Is the one.
1M. So Europeans, European 1M, this is the most used. And which was also in the old IN, in the old EN, was 66, I suppose.
Yes, similar.
So from this, similar to this, it has spread into 6 different heads.
If you have a specific Asian market, you need to specify which is the head form that is used to the test.
In fact, to us, UNIVET is the company that exports effectively mostly everywhere. And of course, we had to adapt our products in order to also fit the Asian heads and the Asian places.
Different fitting with different geometry and features.
So that means that, of course, we had to perform our test also here and here and here, and not just stay on these 3 heads. But as Paolo remarked, this is a choice of the producer, of the manufacturer.
Because then is declared on the certificate which head form was selected.
Yeah, so this is something, the information which is reported in the declaration, the product declaration. So the key difference between the 2 standards is also about a clear definition of the areas to be protected. UNIVET has its own laboratory where we can perform various tests on our own. These pics, for example, I've taken from our laboratory where there is a laser, a visible laser, that indicates where's the point that has to be protected in the front, in the frontal case. This is in the pupil height, and in the lateral position. Many products today, for example, you can have a look at them, and in terms of eyewear, they don't reach this point of coverage. This one is a new thing, introduced by the ISO. Specifically, when we speak about an actual protected area, we can identify the 3 different areas. The first, which is indicated in this case in red, indicates the area, the minimal area which has to be covered by spectacles, as well as the blue one. Can see that it's a bit brighter, and it's for the goggles, while the green one refers to the shields,
shield or visors.
This is also something about introduced by the ISO, which was not so clearly identified by the EN before. And basing on this, new protected areas to be protected. It's coming up. Also, the impact resistance changed. The older EN, you are all responsible for the blue colors, safety, security, so you know exactly what we are talking about when we speak about the FB or 8 parameter in order to protect. So the first level of protection, F, means resistance to a particular bullet of a specific dimension, so to up to 45 meters per second. And the new one, the EN in the new ISO, this has kept the same by changing the ladder. So for the certification, and what is marked on the lens has changed from F to C. Here you can see that there are 2 significant differences. The first one is that the 120 meters per second for the goggles, identified by B or BT, okay, has been reduced to only 80. Everybody can wonder why, because, okay, you've dumped down from 120 to 80 and from 190 for the shields to 120 only. Does it mean that it's not, sorry, I wanted you to read this one afterwards. This is not a reduction of safety. Indeed, this is an increase. It has been thought in the way of increasing the safety, because if something some particles impact the face of the walker at more than 80 meters per second, it would be worth also to protect the cheeks and the mouth. And
very important.
It's very important to protect at least this area. And that's the reason by which, if something comes, there's the danger of objects flying at 100 meters per second, is strongly, in this case, it's compulsory to pass directly to a shield and not to stay only with a goggle. So that's the reason of this reduction, if you want, of the thresholds. It's suggested to increase the safety of the walker on that. What has ISO introduced that was missing in the previous one? For example, the penetration test. This is a needle. This is a needle and this is one of our goggles. The needle is with a particular structure, length of the spike, for example, and it's dropped from a height of 1.5 meter, if I could remember, with a specific
yes, there
weight.
is a specific meter with a specific measurement.
And you can see also that this type of test is something that UNIVET was already used to perform before the ISO was introduced, because it's better to have 100 tests that are past test instead of only have the required 50, for example, of the norm. If you pass 100 tests instead of only 50, you are sure that your products are safe. And you can compete in a better way in the market. This is a marketing reason, if you want. This penetration test was indeed present in the American standard, the ANSI. And that's also the reason by which we introduced that, because we export in the United States as well. So it was considered in the American standard. It was not considered in the Europe. Now it has been improved in both. And then something which has been introduced as well is the electric arc protection. It refers to this specific IEC 62819, and it refers, if you wanted, to all the work environments like this one. and the guy where from head to foot, of course, he has to be protected against electrical arc. So electrical arc protection is something which has been introduced for the eyewear as well, as long as some markings which were totally inexistent before. CH, for example, is for additional requirements for chemical resistance, 6 for liquid streams, 7 for radiant heat, furnaces, for example, and nothing else. Past ISO 16321, hyphenation 1 covers the old EN 166 in terms of, this is the general norm with other EN which were covering tests about the ultraviolet radiations. So people are working effectively, you can see this high low look at lengths, for example, so ultraviolet where infrared, so most common are furnaces. Sun glare for industrial workplace in use, for example, when you have a photovoltaic system, you are outside and you have the direct radiation of the sun and the reflected one. So the guy here has to be protected against the sun glare as well, EN 172. The ISO, indeed, the 3212 is specific for welding. So for the filters, and the covers then what was the 169 for the filters and the 175 about frames mounting the welding filters. The last one, the hyphenation 3, is something specific for the mesh visors. So this is just the variance and the new classification of the ISO versus the old EN. Another important thing is what about the marking? Because also the marking effectively changes. Marking is placed on the lens and on the frame of the hour, and of course allows you to select the correct PPE. Well, talking about effectively these symbols here, where the U identifies the manufacturer, in this case is UNIVET. Every manufacturer has got his own letter or symbol in order to identify that. And then the filtering performance code, what it was a 2C, is now substituted by a different indication. This is the color of the lens. I can tell you that it has been kept the same. This is just an example because in the next slide, I've prepared the old and the new marking. DT, it's a D we have just seen before about the impact resistance, can then remain the same about anti-scratch and anti-fog. Marking has to be must be put compulsory on both the lenses and the frame. For the frame, you can see that the indications are more or less the same. But going in the deep, what's new about and what's about in comparison to the old one? So, for example, the 2C was indicating, which has been about a filter, UV filter with a good color recognition. It has been replaced by the UL that we have just seen here, UL. This is something that generally, if I think that the guys with like you have to put the most important attention, because if a spectacle is just marked 2 instead of 2C, it means that you don't have a good color recognition. This is something that happens, for example, if you have sunglasses and you try to see if something which is colored in yellow or is colored in the orange or something which is colored in red. And you can recognize maybe these colors without the glasses, but once you put the glasses on, for example, you don't see red anymore, or you can't see the yellow in the proper way. When this happens, it happens because of lenses should be marked only with 2 instead of the 2C. These 2 have been modified within U and UL. And the rest this is just a little guidance for you to...
The letter was substituting an amber.
Yeah, roses is substituting an amber, for example. The infrared is now no more 4, but is R. For example, the solar filter is G instead of 5. So, and the solar filter with infrared effectively is now GR. And the welding, it has been put a double view before the shade. So the shade 4 is now WV4, for example. important is this about the optical class. Optical class, just to recall you, that if identifies whether a lens is good or not. What does it mean if it's good or not? If it deforms, if there are deformations in the objects while seeing also in the lateral part of the spectacles or not. A good spectacle, a good goggle, for example, never deforms image. So you can look straight in front of you, or you can look on the right side or on the left side, and objects must be the same. There must be no deformation. When this happens, we spoke about a class 1 in the end 166. That means that this is just an indication of the deformation that you can have in class 1, which is peanuts. It's very reduced. The same has been kept also in the ISO, and the indication of class 1 is the same. Just to make you an example.
You are not obliged to put in the marking.
Thank you, Paolo. You're not the indicator, and is not obliged to put in the market, because otherwise I think that maybe 25 characters won't be enough effectively to cover everything. In the old EN 166, we also had the class 2 and the class 3, which are given effectively also a remarkable range of expected deformation possibilities. These one have been taken out directly. No more such type of deformation, possible deformation. This minus, this hyphenation, this minus sign is it means that it's exactly reported on the lens marking. Instead of a number 2, there is this, and the meaning is the same. So you can see that why here about the scale number, nothing has been introduced as a new thing, but is the marking that changed from 2 to U and so on. Here, with this change to the ISO, a new policy, a new strategy for the safety has been introduced. The fact of having taken out the class 3 means that all spectacles, goggles, and visors must be more strict relating to this rule about the deformation, the possible deformation of the lens. Again, about the mechanical resistance, what we have seen before, F, B, and A changed into the C, D, and E. The T, this parameter T, I recall you that it's simply depending on the way that you make the test, in the sense that F grants a resistance to this particular impact. But
at room temperature.
At room temperature, yes. 18, 20 degrees generally.
Yes. When you have a T, it means extreme temperature. It means that you test at -5 and +55.
So -5 and +55.
You can choose if you want to have the extreme temperature to be marked with a T, but this is the meaning.
Just to make you here D. In our products, we 99% of the time put also the extreme test at extreme temperature. For this reason, it's not only D, but it's DT in this case. And by the way, you can also realize that the over spectacle that you have seen at the pic before is effectively tested for a goggle impact resistance, not only a spectacle, because otherwise we would have put just a C or a CT.
Yes, based on the orbital zone that you have to cover.
Yeah, as Paul just said, of course, it depends on the orbital zone. And also an over spectacle is not a simple spectacle. It's something that must protect more. And that's the reason by which we've prolonged and we've strived to reach the D in this case. Here we have some new things. The new things, it's about the additional requirements that we have seen in the slide before. 6 has been introduced against not simply droplets, but it's something, a liquid stream, because of course there are many environments where it might happen that there is a liquid stream splashing on the head of the walker. Okay, 4 and 5 large particular dust particles and gas. This remains the same. Electrical arc is 8, and it has been replaced in a different way. Electrical arc, sorry that I got back to you in some slide before. It's very nice. Electrical arc protection. A new test has been introduced specifically about this norm. So it's not just a parameter, but it's something that must be reported in a proper way. Sorry, because the animation sort of imposes me a fatality to go up and down in such a way. Radiant heat for the visors, for furnaces, for example, has been introduced, and very important is CH, the chemical resistance. The chemical resistance is an optional parameter. Yes, it depends, of course, on what are the substances, ammonia, instead of
there are specific liquids that must be tested with a specific protocol.
Yeah, and that means what is the liquid? Is it ammonia? Is it sodium chloride? Is it something else? What is the concentration? Everything is, of course, is fixed in a specific protocol, as Paolo said, and in one protocol, let's say that it's mostly more for goggles and for visors. These additional requirements of if this grants, in the case that a CH is given, this grants effectively the resistance to those specific substances. E and then remain the same, anti-scratch, anti-fog, and the infrared radiation, radiant protection is R again. So 3 new things, some change in the indication here.
If you can go back,
I go back.
just one point that, sorry, my fault, that I was missing here. The goggle was used to be marked also with 9 molten metals, but with a new ISO, and this was a very big and important level up, the 9 marking could be done just for visor, and make a lot of sense, because when you are working in a foundry or for molten metals, I can be covered by the goggle, but what happened to my nose, my mouth, or the rest of the face? So the 9 marking is feasible just on the visor. And this is very important, because otherwise you can wear a beautiful and great goggle, but if you are not covered on the other side of the face, I mean, make no sense. So the 9 marking is no more on the goggle, but is just on the visor. Sorry that I was missing this point that is important.
Shame on you, shame on you. For that. Okay, this is one of the spectacles that we are introducing in the market. Belongs to a series which is brand new, because it was born already with a new ISO standard. So one thing, even if we might be, maybe if everybody you is very well versed into this matter, but here you can see that there is a particular attention to the lateral protection. And having tried several eyewear, this is, I would say, for the first time that I feel effectively protected in a better way, especially here in the height of the cheeks, here, and in the lateral protection. And there is a fantastic test that I invite you to do. If go with a mountain bike, put those one here or go surfing, and you'll feel the difference effectively, because there's no penetration of the air. Okay, this was our little presentation of, and feel free question and answer right now. Here we are.
We try, if I can. Okay, this is, let's say, an easy and quick presentation to make a comparison in between what was and how is, what is the same and what is different. If I can, without going in the details, but one thing that I would like to highlight, if possible, is just to take 2 minutes to explain how we work. the fact to have all the design made internally and to have a lab internally for us from a development point of view is very, very important because when we develop concept taking in consideration the new norms and the new parameter and the new coverage. So what we do, we make a 3D file, we make 3D printed prototypes that are very, very important because then the first thing is, one is for the creative director. Oh, I like it. Okay, and this is the first thing. But at the same time, we go in the lab and we need to be sure to say, yes, coverage is perfect, or it's a borderline. Okay, let's add some material in this area or in the other area. This is very important because from a confidentiality point of view, all the development is done in-house. From a development point of view, we cut the development time because when a mold is done, to make a modification is never easy. Okay. And now with a new technology, you can also make a prototype with a kind of translucent material that it helps also on doing some tests and really to see how you see and how you look. And so this for us is important also because then what we do when we have the first shot that we call T0, to have a lab in-house give us the possibility to make all the tests. And sometimes we talk about extreme test because it's always very important to try to test. Just an example, we want to mark DT, okay? The protocol required to test impact at -5 and the +55. We can play with -8 or 10 or with +60, just to be sure that everything is performing in the right way, because you know that you can have the same material, you can have the same assembling concept, but the geometry can make the difference. And this is very important for us. So sorry, I just wanted to explain this.
We see that Jake raised the hand.
And you're on mute.